Hey, everybody. Welcome to the GMI Rocket Show. I'm your host, Roman Zelichenko, former immigration attorney turned immigration tech founder. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Laborless, an H-1B compliance tool, and also the founder of GMI Rocket, which is a marketing agency for the immigration industry, and of course brings you this show. Today's episode 98. Which again, I will, until we get to 100, every time I'm going to be like crazy. Can't believe we're almost at 100. I'm really excited. Today's guest is an immigration tech, kind of a legal tech startup founder who has found a really great use case for their product within the immigration space. We're going to talk all about it. Our guest today is Adam Sharf, who is the COO and co-founder of Pigeon. The website is pigeondocuments.com. You know, they go by Pigeon, but if you Google Pigeon, you'll probably find a bird. And Pigeon is, at least right now, they are a kind of a specialized, document kind of retrieval company. So law firms use Pigeon to have their clients upload all the documents supporting evidence, et cetera, that they need for their cases in a way that it makes sense for the client, that's easy, that is streamlined, et cetera. It's a cool product, and I'm excited to dive into the story and dive into, of course, Adam's life as an entrepreneur. Before we go on, though, I do want to say huge thank you to the main sponsor of this episode, Lex Reception. So if you're an immigration lawyer or work at an immigration law firm, Lex Reception is a legal intake, reception, and client support service. They answer phone calls and messages in real time. They schedule appointments, and they provide immigration law firms a 24/7 legal answering specialist. So you, as a busy lawyer, if you're getting inquiries from prospective clients, you don't have to worry about missing them while you're, kind of doing casework. So Lex Reception handles that. They also proactively reach out to clients that have maybe filled out a form on your website or otherwise reached out to you. So they're kind of your sales team in a way. They integrate with a variety of legal tech platforms like Clio, Practice Panther, LawPay, and more. And so they fit in really nicely with your tech stack. And for listeners of the GMI Rocket Show, you get $250 off your first month of service with them. Just reach out to them and say you heard about them from the GMI Rocket Show, or use the link in the show description. Okay, so without further ado, Adam, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to chat with you and share your story and the story of Pigeon.
Hi, Roman. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited as well.
So you're I've had a lot of different guests. We'll get into this. You're an almost lawyer. You're so close to being a lawyer. You went to law school. You kind of paused law school to basically pursue this, which is, I love that story. I mean, this is kind of like the kind of Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, like dropping out, but obviously this was law school for you. So you did go to university, but we'll get to that. So, I love to do these shows in part because not just to learn about companies, but also to learn about the people, right, that are building technology in the industry. So I like to kind of go back in time, if you will, with the guests and learn a little bit about them. So I don't know, could you just share kind of I know you're sitting in New York right now, but where are you from? Kind of, how'd you grow up? Were you kind of like a business-minded lemonade stand kind of kid, or, very studious, or who was Adam, pre-Pigeon?
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, you can call me a Harvard Law School dropout as long as you're not talking to my grandmother. That'll be just fine. But yeah, so, going back to kind of, pre-Pigeon and, as far as, childhood is concerned, was a pretty normal kid, definitely not kind of particularly entrepreneurial, very into sports, very into kind of just the things that kids generally were into. And, I would say, yeah, nothing kind of unique on that front, except for kind of one unique part of my childhood was that I was raised in a family with 9 children. And so I'm the middle of 9. I have 4 older siblings and 4 younger siblings.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, I know everybody likes to, think of their mom as a superhero, but my mom really, she is a superhero. So she has 9 kids, and my dad was a cardiologist and, was working a lot, to support the family. And my mom really took on a lot of the kind of burden of raising 9 kids, and she also actually ran my father's cardiology practice, so she was an entrepreneur herself and kind of ran the whole business side.
Wow.
And just to put the cherry on top, when I was about 12 years old, she went to school to get a PhD in clinical psychology. So she really is, a superhero. And I definitely learned a lot from, watching her as an entrepreneur and kind of share in a variety of different responsibilities with such grace. And I would say that definitely gave me a lot of inspiration. And then additionally, she was extremely busy and kind of by choice as well, wanted to let us find our way. And was not a helicopter parent by any stretch of the imagination. She couldn't be with 9 kids, but
Right.
really kind of let us, free to flourish and to fail on our own. So when it came to school, if I got a C, she wasn't there holding my hand as I did the next assignment. She would give advice, but really let me kind of figure it out for myself. And I would say that, finding my own way was something I was, forced to do in a family with 9 children, and kind of, maybe is one of the factors that contributed to me, being interested in pursuing, an entrepreneurial life, really.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of, maybe one of the
Yeah.
unique pieces of my childhood that's relevant.
Yeah. Wow. Do you feel like you had to, do you feel like, with or 8 other siblings, um, like you said, you had to kind of find your own way. Were you, and I'm not trying to like dive into family dynamics here, obviously, but, I'm assuming there has to be a lot of cooperation between, of course, siblings. My uncle has 7 kids, so I see it, and they range from 12 to 26 years old. And so, but there has to be some level of cooperation, which I feel like is, I don't know, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, you have to work with your team. You have to work with clients. You have to work with like, do you think that forced you into this cooperative rather than it's me, me, me? It couldn't be me, 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 because me was out of 9, 1 out of 9.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Definitely learned, how to resolve conflicts rather quickly, how to find middle
Yeah.
paths between kind of 2 conflicting opinions. And I'm the middle child, so I have 4 older and 4 younger. I was, to put it plainly, I was the baby of the older half and kind of the leader of the younger half in a
Hmm.
way. And kind of
Wow.
bridging that gap definitely taught me a lot of life lessons that I think served me really well moving into college and then ultimately law school.
That's so crazy. And like, I mean, I know you said this, but like, kudos to your mom for just, I can't imagine how difficult that is. And wow, that she went back to school and got her PhD. That's really inspiring. That's really cool. So, okay. So then you had this, and I'm, again, like I said, no necessarily kind of, lemonade stand situation, but did you have, from a entrepreneurial standpoint, kind of watching your parents, work in this business, run this business? I'm just curious if you had any specific memories, conversations at the dinner table or anything that was like, huh, I'm interested in, how do you get more clients? Why do you make these decisions about the office versus other decisions? I wonder if any of that kind of had any memories come up from that perspective.
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely remember, yeah, hearing about kind of the management side, dealing with people, and I always found
Hmm.
that fascinating. That as a business owner, my parents would, constantly be talking about kind of the relationships that they had with their employees, and doing their best to keep their employees, their patients happy, and that was kind of a guiding light for them. So that was definitely interesting. And yeah, I mean, from the kind of lemonade stand perspective, one story does come to mind where, I was very into sports, and Allen Iverson, if you're familiar with him, he was my
Of course.
favorite basketball player, and I really wanted a jersey. And again, this was just kind of key to my mom's parenting style. But when I went to her saying I wanted a jersey, she said, you got to figure it out. This is she's not going to help me with that. This is your kind of task, to your goal, and go figure it out. So I went and had a nice conversation with my brother-in-law, who was in his young 20s at the time, and he said let's go do essentially a popsicle stand, but we were selling these magic cookie bars. So we would put together, like, all the best ingredients you could think of, put them into a cookie, and we just put out a table outside of our local kind of shopping center. It was totally illegal, looking back. We had no
Right,
permit. We didn't ask
right.
permission. We just put up the table. I
Yeah.
went first time, made about $150. That was enough to get me one jersey. I went back a few more times until
Whoa.
we were eventually kicked out by the by
Right.
the store owner. But yeah, made a few $100 to get that jersey. So I did have a little bit of that in me, I guess.
That's so cool. Like I wish I had those experiences. I'm the eldest of two, so I I didn't have like an older sibling or anybody to kind of because that takes time, it takes energy. But I feel like the lessons there are so great, even if it's a small little business. Just the idea that I run this cookie shop. I'm how old were you at the time when you did this?
I was around 13. I think I was around 12, actually. Yeah.
So yeah, like you're not a child, but you're a teenager, you're a young kind of preteen, if you will. And just the idea of that you have like this is you make the decisions, you're the boss in a way is really cool. And I love running my own business now. It's not easy. A lot of people, I'm sure you get this too, maybe from law students or college grads or others in your network who are like, oh, what is it like? We'll get to it, but why Combinator, startup, and I hope it's fun for you. Like I hope you're enjoying the ride, but I'm sure you can attest to the fact that it's not easy. I mean, it's basically, it's a full-time 24/7 sometimes ride, but the idea, the freedom of, choice that you have, by running your own business versus kind of following someone else's shoes or following someone else's orders, I think is a great life lesson, and learning it, I think, as early as possible, whether or not you become an entrepreneur is really important.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And it's really resilience. I think, the more you can learn resilience from a young age, again, definitely learn that playing sports and playing, high school football and battling through pain. The more resilience that you can learn at a young age, I think the better set up you'll be to be an entrepreneur, whether it be a tech startup or a law firm, like I'm sure a lot of your listeners, that resilience is key.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, because the no's that you get across the board, you demo your product and people say, "Yeah, I don't know," and you can't be deflated from that. You have to very much trust that what you're building is great. Um, Amazing. Okay, so you made your way over all the way to University of Oregon. Amazing school, big sports school, obviously. I wonder what pulled you over there. Was it like the football, the Nike headquarters being nearby? I mean, I'm curious.
Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with it. Just applied pretty broadly, got a nice scholarship there, and yeah, I think I was initially attracted probably because of the sports brand.
hmm Go Ducks! I didn't know much about Oregon, but I had a roommate when I was an attorney. I was living with a group of guys, and one of them was he was a Ducks fan, diehard Ducks fan from Oregon. So I came to really learn a lot about their coaching style, and apparently they recruit a lot of track stars to their football team, and so their offensive play is just insane. I mean, they run fast and a lot of yards, but I didn't grow up playing or watching football, so that strategy was cool. I'm a Ducks fan. I have no college affiliations because my school didn't have a football team, but somehow I'm a Ducks fan.
We'll take it. Yeah, I follow less now, definitely, but
Yeah.
yeah, we'll take it. We'll take your fandom.
But you obviously didn't, you majored in uh, poli sci basically, right? And not entrepreneurship, not business. I know you went to law school, obviously, later on. Is there a reason? I mean, did you think about, okay, maybe one day I'll start a business, anything like that? Or were you thinking, career, law school, kind of licensed professional type of life for yourself?
I think in college, I honestly wasn't really thinking through kind of exactly what path I could see myself going down until really my last year of college. So, going into college, I mean, I kind of discovered a love for reading in my first couple of years of college, and really spent a lot of time, reading books and taking in as much information as I can. Generally, nonfiction, a lot of philosophy, a lot of history, politics. So really found a love for that, and kind of the free thinking, but also the critical thinking required to kind of solve, um, big problems. And that was kind of what I saw in law school was I can combine this, love of reading that I've discovered, along with, by the way, a love of writing that I had from high school even, and combine that with, problem solving that is, case law and policy making. And, I thought that on the one hand, it was extremely interesting. And on the other hand, I wasn't exactly sure what direction it might take me in. Because I knew that going to, a law school kind of leaves many doors open. So it was partially, my appreciation for the skills I think that were needed to be, successful in law school, as well as the amount of doors that it left open was what, I would say enticed me to at least give it a try. And then, I knew that I was studying extremely hard throughout college and got really good grades. And I knew that if I got a good score on the LSAT, I could go to a very good law school. So then when I did take the LSAT and did get a good enough score to go to really a top school, I thought it could set me up well and to learn the lessons that I need to learn to really be successful, regardless of the avenue that I specifically went down. And I thought law was a serious possibility. I thought maybe I would want to be a lawyer.
Yeah, and honestly, and in hindsight, of course, it's easier to say, but even frankly, when you're thinking about law school, a lot of people do say, look, yes, you can practice law, but if you do not practice law, it serves you in so many different capacities. I mean, as a business owner, I deal with more contracts now than I did when I was an attorney, right? Except now they're my, like, they relate to me and my business. It's not for some, for clients. So having that, and by the way, I don't deal with the contracts. We have outside counsel for most things, but being an attorney just makes those interactions with clients, with outside attorneys, it makes them so much better and easier. I love that. And I guess I know so between college and law school, you studied Talmudic law, you studied Jewish law. Is that just because you were like, look, I mean, those are the same. I mean, it's kind of the same skills, right? You're analyzing text, you're having discussions, there's practical application. Did you already know that you were applying for law school during that time? Like, was this sort of like a quote unquote gap year, if you will? Or did you go and study, and this was in Jerusalem, right? Yeah, you went to Jerusalem. You went to Jerusalem. So did you do that? And then during that time say, yeah, I want to go back to the States and, go to law school? I'm just curious because I haven't seen many people that followed this path. So just personally interested.
Yeah, definitely a unique path. And I had already applied to law school. I hadn't gotten into law schools yet. So I had applied that fall. And then, I started hearing back January. So kind of while I was there in Jerusalem was when I was hearing back and then figuring out what school I would end up going to. And yeah, I mean, the reason was really motivated by, as I had already mentioned, kind of early on in college, I began thinking a lot about big questions, and I was reading a lot and consuming a lot of kind of different worldviews and information. And by the end of college, I was curious about what my own tradition as somebody who is Jewish but whose family is not religious, what my own kind of tradition had to say about these same questions. And that's really what inspired me to go to study Talmudic law in Jerusalem. And I was able to essentially use it as a gap year to learn the answers that kind of my family's tradition gave to the same questions, and found it fascinating. Definitely a lot of overlap with law school. I put it this way, that when you're studying in law school, you essentially start with a case, and then from the case you derive a law that you then apply. And Talmudic law is kind of the opposite. You actually start with the law, and then you develop series of cases to basically refine the law and to apply it and figure out kind of the edges of its application. So it's very similar what you end up kind of consuming, but just kind of in different orders. And it's it was an extremely interesting experience.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I ended up looking into it. I was like, oh, there's like 1-year programs. That'd be fun.
Definitely.
Except way later, way after law school. That's fascinating. Okay, and so then you obviously got into Harvard. You went there, and presumably we're still thinking of, okay, I'm gonna see what happens, but obviously the doors are open for me to become an attorney. I know you interned at a great a corporate law firm, Kirkland Ellis, right? I believe, if I looked at
Correct.
Kirkland and Ellis, great firm. So in all things considered, okay, if I pause your life in that moment, I take a step back, I'm like, all right, you're set. You're going to have a great job. Whether you stay in big law or do something else, you're setting yourself up for a great career. And then you just leave. I mean, very simplistically, right? And end up starting your own company. I mean, this is a huge decision, right? Like, you took the LSAT. I mean, you studied all this time. You've made this decision. You moved to Boston, presumably, et cetera. What drove this? Like, what started this kind of path to making that decision? Because I imagine it is not an easy one.
Yeah, that's a great question. And really, the story starts actually in my dad's backyard. So, I was sitting there. It was, I believe, during COVID, and me and some of my best friends from school growing up were all sitting in the backyard of my dad's house having a barbecue, and they started talking about starting a business and some ideas that they were floating around. And at the time, I was firmly set on going to Kirkland and Ellis, and said, "This is great, guys, but I have a career I'm pursuing, and wish you the best. I really wish I could join, but it's not for me right now." And they really started to kind of lightly think about it further and pursue it while I was off at Kirkland and Ellis and going through law school. And I had an experience in law school. I was really blessed to at Harvard they have a group called the Harvard Law and Entrepreneurship Project, where you're really able to work directly with entrepreneurs answering their legal questions. So they will come to you with a series of questions, usually pretty difficult, from my experience. And we had to spend time looking into the answers. And I just remember one kind of specific interaction where one of the founders we were working with, it was an early stage Series A company. And he, gave us a very difficult problem. It was related to short-term housing in Boston, where they have kind of restrictions on how long you can rent these short-term housing units for, which was kind of critical to their business. It was a really difficult problem, and like me and my team spent a week researching it, looking into it, trying to figure out what the answer to this founder's question was. And we went back to him and said, this is our answer. We hope it helps. And he said, "Thank you," and goodbye. And then I emailed him and said, "Hey, I just wanted to catch up and kind of hear about your job and what you're doing and how our project relates to it. Can we have a conversation?" And I said to him, that was like a very interesting question, very difficult. Like, I can't imagine like, you having to kind of answer those on a, pretty regular basis. Like, I imagine you have one of those every few weeks. He said, "Adam, you don't understand. We have a question that's that difficult, that's that time consuming, and not just in law, but in all sorts of areas, at least 5 times a day. And it's like the most dynamic job, and it's the most exciting job, and there's extreme highs and extreme lows." And just kind of in that conversation, it really clicked for me that the way I think my brain works, the way that I'm kind of developed,
Wired,
that
maybe.
maybe wired, is really to be an entrepreneur and to pursue kind of big and interesting questions that have extremely undefined answers, and try and solve them. And so that was kind of the realization. And kind of alongside that, my same close friends from childhood who we ended up starting the business with, were continuing to think about Pigeon and its applications. And they had reached out to me and mentioned that they're kind of doing this. And around that time, I also had an experience where I was working with a small law firm, and really felt the critical nature of this problem of document collection, that it's really not just a nice to have, it's a need to have if you are a small law firm or a mid-sized law firm trying to really delight your clients and become as efficient as you can. And when I had the experience firsthand, kind of helping a small law firm with some of these processes, and realized kind of the gravity of the issue, and how we really could develop a good solution, that was when I decided that I was going to be leaving law school and pursuing this full time.
What was the issue? I mean, there are a couple of questions I have about that. What was the issue that you ran into with the small law firm you were working at? I mean, you mentioned that document collection is not a nice to have, it's a must have. What kind of, what did you see that was an inefficiency, or, was lacking a good tool or whatever?
Yeah, really what sharpened the clarity of the issue that these firms were facing in my mind was the paralegals who would kind of, I was helping to develop, one particular case and work on it. And I was working, somewhat with the paralegals who would, send me files. And I remember just they would be consistently complaining about, their clients not submitting files to them and, not having an easy way to do it. And yeah, really it was through kind of their very clear complaints about their own internal processes for requesting and collecting those files that I kind of felt the strength of the problem, and obviously kind of mentioned Pigeon to them and came to understand it from their perspective. But yeah, kind of the specific problem was that they would basically send out an email. They would, maybe either, list out kind of the documents that they needed, or they would tell the client over the phone, and then they would just kind of include an upload link. And there's really no process to it. It was, completely manual from, every piece of the process. They just had to hope that the client would either upload the files to the link or at least send them back over email. Oftentimes they would come in over, multiple email threads. And then the paralegals were left to spend all this time kind of tracking down those files, organizing them, going back to the client, asking for additional files, as opposed to doing, really like valuable work where they can be kind of extensions of the attorneys. They were spending time with these administrative tasks, collecting these files. So I would say that kind of inspired a lot of our, early development as far as features and kind of aims of the company.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense. And not only are you not tracking it, but like I don't know what they call it, a tickler, something like reminders for the clients. Hey, you've uploaded 2 out of 6, but the other 4 are still outstanding, et cetera. And files are still like, we work with files. I mean, that's what lawyers do. Supporting docs, in immigration law, right? You have, depending on the kind of case you're working with, you may need a business plan. You may need, passport page photos. You may need your birth certificate, marriage certificate, all this stuff. And yeah, like a lot of the work is chasing down the client and making sure they do it. But then that begs the question, right? From a product standpoint, well, why are they not uploading the files? Is it because they're busy? Is it because when they get this file upload request, it feels like a mental load for them rather than feeling like a really easy task, and so they put it off? Like, and if that's the case, is there a way to build a solution that would, when it's time to upload the file, your files or your documents, it feels easy? You're still doing the same thing, but are you handheld, whatever?
Yeah.
And it's so crucial.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well said. And it reminds me of a study I read once. It was, done by McKinsey, and they, it was talking about kind of net promoter scores and how to improve client satisfaction. And it gave an example of, finding the kind of biggest pain points in a process and areas of friction and just removing them altogether. So it gave the example of a hotel chain. And it used to be the case that kind of the biggest friction and pain points that hotel customers would say when they have their stay was the time it took to check in and check out, that you'd have to go and speak to the concierge and give them information. And they kind of switched, the whole industry has moved to where you can really just walk out of a hotel, return your key and go, and it really takes very little or no time. So they kind of just removed that pain point, that friction from the process. So I'd say a lot of the value we add is definitely kind of around that front of, just as you're saying, hand holding the clients through the document requests and uploads, and making sure that they're having as easy of an experience as possible. So for example, a lot of the times if you're going to just be requesting files over email, the clients get confused. They don't know what files they need to submit. There's no clear instructions or example files, and they're not able to kind of keep track on their end of which ones they've submitted or not, especially if they're submitting them only a few files at a time and then coming back to finish it later. So that's where with Pigeon, they are sent a checklist where they're able to keep track of all of those files. All the instructions that you want are included there, as well as example files. And they can always kind of in that one location see all the progress that's been made on that request, any comments or notes that you've left for them as far as changes they need to make to that those files that are being uploaded or anything else. And then we have all sorts of other ways to just make it really easy for the client, to where not only can you make this request over email, but you can also, as a firm, send it to your client's phone via SMS. So they're getting not just that initial email, but also a text message if you'd like, as well as automated reminders on a cadence that you select to go back in, see the progress they've made on that checklist, and upload those files. Additionally, they never need to create an account or remember a password. We know that can be a big, pain point and area of friction for clients uploading files, is when they have to remember passwords, create accounts, log in order to securely upload those files. And so with Pigeon, they never have to do that. They just click that link and they can be taken directly to that checklist to upload files. Although we do have two-factor authentication if you want to allow that for just an extra layer of security, but really just making that process as seamless as possible. They get it to their phone. They can keep track of that checklist. They know what comments they need or have been made so that they can resubmit, and it's all happening without them having to actually create an account.
Yeah, and I think the focus on that, and again, there are a lot of amazing tools out in our industry that do a lot of great things. I think document upload is something that is seen as obviously necessary, but it's usually, it may not be given the same amount of attention, right? And so it's really cool. I'm coming at this also from a perspective of somebody who's similarly kind of built a platform that solves one piece of sort of the larger problem. And I actually love doing that because it allows me to hyper focus on this problem and then partner with other platforms that are really great at kind of the bigger things. So for lawyers, immigration lawyers, it may be case management, for example. So actually, this is a really good time to thank our second sponsor of this episode, DocketWise. So DocketWise, for those who, most people know DocketWise. If you don't, and you're an immigration provider, they're an all-in-one case management platform. They have really leading best-in-class immigration forms. They make it really easy for clients to fill out their immigration forms, to sync up edits between forms and the client's profiles, et cetera. They have really customizable questionnaires in a number of languages. They have tons of integrations. They were actually the first to release an open API in the immigration space. Laborless, my company, has an integration with them, and so our DocketWise clients can use Laborless. And they have great customer service. One of the things I really love about DocketWise, and I'm grateful for them supporting the show, is that they create a lot of content for the industry. So, podcasts, blogs, etc. So for folks who are listening, if you're interested in checking out DocketWise, and you're an immigration lawyer, visit the link in the show notes, or just go to DocketWise.com and tell them that you heard about them from our show. That wasn't even, I didn't even try to put in that. The sponsorship comment there at that time, it was so perfect. But I think DocketWise is one of those companies that knows what they're really good at, and then also really works towards integration with various companies in our industry that are hyper focused on particular pieces across the supply chain, if you will, of tools that lawyers can use.
Yeah, that was definitely very well placed, and I would say that it's definitely something that we're well aware of. Is we are not a case management tool, and we're not looking to replace case management tools. We're really looking to help facilitate this kind of specific process when you're an immigration law firm and you need to collect supporting evidence or files from your clients. Pigeon is the easiest way to do that, and so that's kind of what we're focused on. And we understand that it fits kind of into this broader ecosystem. And that's definitely kind of a lot of our roadmap moving forward. And the way we're trying to grow in the space is by, connecting in with these case management tools. But yeah, for now, essentially Pigeon is being used for that request and collection process, replacing things like emails and kind of just generic client portals, and providing a whole suite of functionality around what really is a core business process for immigration law firms, which is collecting files.
I want to jump back a little bit because I do want to get back to this. I want to jump back a little bit. We got a comment from one of our listeners, Marianne. She asks, and I kind of want to get into who are the other co-founders? Who's your team? That sort of, because I'm really curious as to how this problem came about, right? I mean, it sounds like you kind of joined up into this project, right, when it was just an idea effectively, and you guys all built it out together. So number one, where did the name Pigeon come from? And number two, can you share a little bit about your co-founders and sort of like the background of how they, if they came across the problem that turned into Pigeon?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, quickly just to knock it out. So Pigeon, it's a courier pigeon is the idea. So
Right.
carrier pigeon going to collect documents on your behalf and sending documents. So
Love
that's
it.
the idea there. And then as far as my co-founders, so come from Google and another co-founder who's worked at Deloitte and other companies, and kind of I'd say more experience in the tech space particularly, and kind of providing that perspective. And really the idea initially came from related to the law. So back a few years ago when we were first starting, my co-founder was applying for apartments and really found that there was similarly no easy and secure way for people to request and collect files for people who are applying to apartments. So you need to collect a series of files, bank statements, pay stubs, a lot of the times kind of similar things to what people collect in the legal space, and that there was no easy, secure way to do that. It was really being done over email as well. As we continued exploring this, we saw kind of the problem existed in mortgage, in kind of different areas of insurance as well. So it's definitely a generalizable problem. We have found so far that kind of the problem is felt most strongly, at least as far as the way we understand it now, in the legal space, and particularly with immigration law, which is really why we're deciding to focus more narrowly, I would say, for the time being on this space. And that is really 10x better than kind of current solutions out there in a relatively shorter time frame. But yeah, that's kind of where the initial idea came from, was applying for apartments.
That's awesome. And yeah, to your point, document collection it can be cross industries. It's not even within different legal verticals, but just I mean, everything. Documents are needed everywhere, and so having, like when I was applying for a mortgage, I had to upload all these documents. You go to the doctor, you got to initially, right? You're setting up your account, and you got to fill out certain things or provide certain things. So, and very often things fall through the cracks, or you just you get busy or you forget, or like I was saying earlier, sometimes I have these tasks that I know in my brain that the task is going to be relatively simple, but because of the way the task is presented to me, again, that mental load feels really high. And so my instinct is, well, I can't do this right now because I'm too busy, even though the task itself will take 10 seconds, because I have to switch my mind from what I'm doing now to this thing. Whereas if it somehow was made to be really easy, it wouldn't feel that way, and I'd get things done more quickly. So I love the idea of understanding the psyche of the client, and sort of working with that, right? Building a product effectively around that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then, and there's kind of the other side to this that we haven't even spoken too much about yet, which is, what it does for the firm. And kind of, in addition to just making things easier for the client, so you're actually, getting things in on time in an easier way, and, saving time and being more efficient on that front. For the firm itself, you're able to, set up all of these itemized request checklist templates. So you'll have basically templates for each of your different use cases. If you're doing, L1A amendments, if you're doing H1B visas, or whatever kind of the use case is. So you'll have all of your different templates laid out, and really just in one click, either from your Microsoft Outlook or from the Pigeon web app, you can load that template and send it off. You can, of course, edit it if you want as well. And then again, you're able to keep that tracked and organized in a much easier way. We provide all sorts of other features that we want, to provide to make it as easy as possible for the firm as well. So converting any images uploaded into PDFs, combining those files into one PDF binder. So basically kind of really being a full suite solution for that whole document request and collection process for the firm, and then, also for the client.
And, on that note, we have a comment here from Nan Park from USI Law saying, great document solution. Have you benchmarked with the mortgage industry? So I brought that up before I saw this comment, because thinking about my process, considering it's another vertical with extremely similar document needs. And Nan is an immigration attorney, although maybe he's got a mortgage empire too. But I don't know. I'm assuming maybe you've looked at that, or you probably have things like that on your future state kind of vision.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I appreciate the question there, Nan. And yeah, we definitely see there being a very similar problem and, even a pretty similar solution in that space. I will say, we're always definitely open to having conversations with people from any vertical or industry. But for now, we're really trying to focus in, to the extent that we can on this immigration law space, because we want to become, the best, or I would say the default or the most well trusted provider for this specific solution, kind of in one area first, and kind of
Yeah.
expand as we go. And we really think we can kind of provide a lot of specific tools and functionality for the immigration space that's going to really help, in this area. But with that being said, we're definitely, we're having conversations with people in other industries. We have clients in other industries as well, but trying to focus or narrow our focus to the degree possible, I would say, to the immigration space.
So I want to switch gears a tiny bit. Part of the reason for this show at all was because when I was building Laborless, I didn't have anywhere to turn to learn about, to learn from entrepreneurs specifically in our industry, or even I would even have taken, you know, legal tech. That would have been enough, right? In the spirit of Passover, but I didn't have that. I had to watch, all sorts of entrepreneurs tell their stories, which was always amazing, but the learnings are specific. You have a unique experience with Pigeon that very few other immigration tech companies have had, which is that you've gone through a startup incubator or accelerator, specifically Y Combinator out in California, which is the most prestigious. I mean, we can call it the Harvard of startup accelerators or incubators. Can you talk a little bit about that process? And I'm thinking now to a specific listener. So maybe somebody who has an idea for an immigration tech platform. Maybe there are a lot of people building, they have some traction, but they can't scale, right? They don't have the means, they don't have the support, the vision, the network. And so something like a YC would be useful. Can you talk a little bit about kind of, what did you get out of that program? And sort of, yeah, how do you think it's helped you get to where you are now and get to build the vision that you have moving forward?
Yeah, that's a great question, and definitely was a unique experience, and we're really grateful to be a part of the program. They've seeded companies like Airbnb, Stripe, Dropbox, so definitely had a lot of wisdom to share from their experience. Creating some of the most successful companies in the world, and I would say that some of the biggest learnings that we had were around really just business processes and actually learning how to move fast. They always say that when you're starting a tech company is you have to move fast, but really learning what that means. And moving fast doesn't necessarily mean working harder, although of course working hard is required to build a tech startup. But I always kind of conceived of it that way, as when you're moving fast, it means instead of working 10 hours you should work 15 hours or whatever that is. And we kind of came to define that a lot more narrowly, meaning developing parts of the product, testing product market fit in different industries and different areas, getting a lot of customer feedback, and doing that on a really kind of fast pace. So there's a story I love, which is from the founder of Netflix, who said that they used to run tests on 60-day time periods, but then they realized they weren't moving fast enough. So they started running tests on 30-day time periods. They realized they weren't moving fast enough. They started running these tests on, 1 week time periods. And then they realized they still weren't moving fast enough. So they started testing, new ideas every day. And that's really kind of one of the things that Y Combinator teaches and really preaches and comes to help you understand, is what it looks like to really iterate and test, new ideas and things on a daily basis. And that ultimately lets us, get feedback from our clients in a faster way, reintegrate their feedback into our product in a faster way, and really just, ultimately delight our clients, more than they otherwise would have if we were kind of working on a slower timeline. So that's definitely one big piece of advice. And then the second thing I would say is just what it means to listen to your customers. I mean, customers are the most important, part of the process of building a company, not just from the perspective of providing you with revenue, but really providing you with feedback and helping you
Yep.
to iterate your product at an
Yep.
early stage. So, I mean, that's one of the lessons that we took to heart, and we are extremely hands-on with our customers. We are, if any of our customers are listening, I'm sure they can attest. Within 20 minutes, we try to reply to any kind of support question, and we try and set up regular times to get their feedback so that we can really create a better product for them. So I would say that's the second thing, is just learning what it means to listen to your customers and really to help, include your customers in part of really shaping the product.
Yeah, and actually, I would say even before that, set up an environment and a culture where client feedback is always a positive, even if it's really harsh feedback. Because to your point, you can assume things about where the product should go all you want, but the real information comes from clients saying, "Hey, we wish this existed," or "We really hate this," or "Can you change this thing a little bit?" And yeah, I mean, that's the absolute. I agree with that 100%. It's one of the best ways to grow your product. And not only are you growing your product, you're showing your customers that you listen to them, which actually creates a really positive feedback loop where they're appreciative of the way you deploy their requests. They are comfortable asking you for more requests, which leads to more features and more growth, which leads to more happiness. And it's a really positive kind of flywheel in that sense. But again, I think you have to set up a culture. It's funny. I'm actually speaking on a panel this year. Are you going to the ALA conference in Chicago? I think you are, right? Or your
Yeah, we'll be
team?
there. We'll be there
Right.
exhibiting. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Okay, great. So I'm speaking on like I think a lunch session or something. I think you'd really be interested in this, sort of about the idea of how providers should work with their how lawyers should work with their kind of tech and service providers. And I think a big portion of that conversation is going to be around, we're doing this because we genuinely want to make your life easier. We want to make your
Hmm.
work better. We're not doing this because we're just like, trying to blow smoke and take your money and run, with like a not with a subpar product. So work with us, right? If you don't like something, before you shop around somewhere else and like see if we can fix it for you, right? If you have a feature request, see if we can build it for you. And then we're going to talk about, which is what I'm really excited about, how the kind of product development lifecycle works. I think a lot of immigration, like I didn't know this when I was practicing. I had experience and I read a lot about tech startups, so I kind of figured it out. But we can't turn something around in a day. I don't care how big your team is, right? There's a product roadmap, and I think we're going to talk about that with the immigration community, just to give them an understanding of what it's like to work at or run a tech or tech enabled company, to understand, like, thank you for your feedback. We've put it on a product roadmap, and here's how it gets kind of moved up and down priority list, et cetera, et cetera. And I think when we bridge that gap of like knowledge and understanding of what each other's kind of work structure is like, it builds better bonds and it creates better feedback. And I just think it's positive for the entire industry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is definitely true. It sounds really interesting. So I hope to definitely go sit in at the conference. And yeah, I would say that that's, as a company, really like one of our biggest strengths is, I mean, we have extremely talented engineers from Google and top companies really working here and trying to build the product and making it as efficient as possible. And I would say that that really is one of our biggest strengths as a company. And it's like you said, it's not just selling the product, but it's really making this kind of culture of welcoming customer feedback, even when it's tough, and making that a core part of our business and our product roadmap. So that's really the way that we operate. I mean, I would say that each of the last 10 features that we've built have all been features that we built specifically because our customers heavily demanded them, or yeah, like just thought that they would be nice to help improve the product. So I would say all of our last 10 features were like that. And another thing is we really do build features on a really fast timeline. And so that's part of what I meant when I said, moving fast is
Mhm.
it's not just in kind of testing things out. It's also in testing them out in a real way. So, we will deploy features that our clients are requesting literally within a day. We've done that before, multiple times. Um, you know, we do it very often within, a week, where our client will say, hey, we really want this new feature as part of the product. Is that something you guys can do? So we'll put a team member on it. We'll have them working, for a day or for a week on this feature, and deploy, a solution that works and that really, helps us solve the problem. Now, maybe, it's not always a full, 100% solution. And so we work with kind of the client to see how we can make it an even better feature. But that is kind of part of our moving fast and testing, is we will deploy these fixes or improvements for our clients on a daily or weekly timeline, and then get their feedback and go from there. And we find that it really helps us to, one, solve our customers' needs on a much faster kind of timeline. We try and kind of avoid these extremely long product roadmaps that where we're making promises that we know we can't fulfill for 6 to 8 months, but rather we find solutions and create solutions on a really short timeline. And yeah, then there's also kind of the longer term products and features and parts of the product that do require kind of longer planning and road mapping, and that's important as well. We have that too, but we do try and move fast with the kind of individual features.
I love that, and I think clients, in fact, I know clients really appreciate it. Even to your point of responding to emails really quickly, the amount of times that I've responded to an email, right away. I mean, especially if I'm on my email and it comes in, I read it and I respond. But even if it's within, a couple hours or even a day, and when the reply from them is, "Oh, thank you so much for the quick response," and I'm thinking to myself, this should be standard. Within 24 hours should absolutely be standard. But you realize that not everyone does it, and that they really appreciate, lawyers or any clients really appreciate a quick reply, whether it's an email, whether it's a product release, etc. In fact, I love what you're saying, and it's kind of just made me think. The parallel to what you're saying is replying to a client with an email saying, "Hey, got your message. We're on it. I'll reply to you. I'll reply substantively in XYZ timeframe, but I wanted you to know that I've heard you and we're on it." And very often that's way more important than actually how quickly you get back to them with the substantive answer. I mean, outside of an emergency. And that's kind of similar to deploying a feature that is, maybe a skeleton version, maybe just a not fully baked out version of what that client envisioned. But if you could get that, again, minimal viable feature, if you will, out to them very quickly and build on top of that, that's almost more important than saying, well, it's going to take us, 2 months to build out this feature in full. And I say that we've done both. There's sometimes where we get it and we say, look, this is going to take a couple of months to do, or there's a certain timeline, Other times we're like, yep, we'll release this to you in, very short, same day, a couple of days. And I think that having the client understand that you're on it is really important from a product and from a communication standpoint.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, for you, Roman, I mean, I'm sure you've sounds like you've kind of learned the same lesson. And that is one thing that Y Combinator really preaches, is do things that don't scale. There's an essay written by Paul Graham, who was the founder of Y Combinator, very famous with that title. And it speaks to this exactly. It's, as an early stage startup, as a tech company that's seeking to grow, our advantage really to the big legacy systems is that we can do things that don't scale. We don't need to be thinking about how we're going to scale this process up to 100 employees or to tens of thousands of clients. We just have to think, how can we delight our customers? And so doing these types of things, they all kind of fall into that bucket of doing things that don't scale. Which I think that's also, kind of relevant advice probably for some of the small immigration law firms, in the industry, as well as, the tech companies servicing them.
So I want to just a couple comments here from Marianne saying, touche, that customers are the most important part of the company. That effectively, they are user research. I mean, customers and how immediate acknowledgement is key. So thank you, Marianne, for your comments as always. I want to ask you, Adam, what is the future? For now. I mean, obviously things change, and you guys are I'm sure nimble and thinking about a million different things. What is Pigeon? Today you're this sort of very specific document, supporting evidence, et cetera, retrieval and kind of management platform, right? Like you help firms make the document upload process as great as possible, which is, again, so crucial. Like, can't overstate how important that is. What do you guys, what's on you that you can share, right? What do you think is on your roadmap, let's say within the immigration industry. Surely you can, broaden this to tons of other industries, but, having worked with immigration law firms a little bit right now and where you're at now, what are you thinking about in terms of the future of the product, maybe the future of where you can fit into the space, et cetera?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yeah, to just harken back quickly to Marianne's comment, I mean, I think that's exactly right. And that is really what we think of as, customers are the most important part of the business. And it relates to this question too, because our customers are part of that conversation. Like, we want to know what is the best way that we can serve you, and how, yeah, how can we do that? And really, the feedback that we've gotten so far, and kind of where the next, I would say, phase of Pigeon's product is heading, is integrating more deeply into their kind of existing systems. So we already kind of solve this problem of requesting, collecting documents in an easier and more organized and secure way. I'd say a very high degree. There's certainly areas we can improve there and features we can add, and we are doing those things as well. But I would say kind of the next phase is integrating into systems more deeply. So integrating into systems like DocketWise, for example, LLX, Serenity Immigration, all these different tools that immigration firms are using as their document management platform and their case management platform, integrating Pigeon in with those, so that they don't even have to leave that system. They can just have those files directly submitted and filed right into the correct place in their case management platform. So really just making it easier for them on that front. And I would say that's really the next phase of Pigeon here for immigration law.
Interesting. So for those listening, get in touch with Adam, as if you're an immigration lawyer, to learn about Pigeon. But then, of course, for anyone listening who's in the industry, right, building out immigration tech platforms, to come talk to you about integrations, et cetera. Do you guys have, or are you building out an API, something that will be that will make the kind of integration process easier, or what are you guys thinking about from that perspective?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we already do, integrate with some kind of general purpose tools. So we've, built integrations for tools like, Box and Dropbox and Google Drive for kind of on a custom basis for things in that area. And then, yeah, we're building these kind of more narrowly tailored integrations with tools like DocketWise. And then, yeah, kind of the third piece of the puzzle here is building our own publicly available API, which we're pretty deep into the process of doing already, and hope to release that in the near future. So definitely that will be part of our short-term roadmap.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's the future of, I hate to say future because it's the present in so many industries, but I think the immigration tech space is still a little bit decentralized, in the sense that folks have their own. Everyone's got an API, but to your point, they're usually not sort of publicly available, if you will, or they're not able to be used across the board. They're usually very specific to certain tools or platforms that you're integrating with. And I do think that I'm continuing to push for that. We've actually finally released our general API where we can now integrate with law firm systems. A lot of law firms have their own internal platforms. Some of them are built on top of Salesforce. Others are completely bespoke, right? How can we, you and I and others fit into their ecosystem where they're managing their clients' data? They're doing so much, but then you come in with this really great product that, let's say, supports document retrieval. Like, how can we have you benefit them? It's got to be through some sort of an API. And so I think that the industry has to continue to move in that direction.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say, like, we're definitely going to have that available as an option. The way that most of our clients use us now, and kind of in every industry, because we don't really have these integrations quite yet. But the way they're using us now, it's also interesting because we're really being used in most of the time to replace email in this process. So, like, for example, there are definitely kind of document management tools that have or case management tools that have document upload functions. But we've, heard, that many firms really don't use those because they're not as user friendly, and they don't necessarily provide kind of the full scope of functionality. So they end up just using email anyway. So it is interesting how, and we do have the Outlook integration, so you can use Pigeon kind of directly from Outlook. So yeah, that is kind of one thing to note, is that it's definitely, pretty easy to use Pigeon kind of alongside these case management tools. But then, like you're saying, I mean, the difference, and especially as kind of the whole industry starts to move this way of like when it can all be integrated more seamlessly into really just, you know, one or two platforms, that definitely does kind of enhance things for the industry at large as well.
I love it. And I'm all for continuous growth for the space. And I'm all for immigration lawyers learning more about it, technology, and kind of almost demanding or asking for more of their tech providers and keeping us all on our toes. And I think it'll just benefit everybody. So where can people find you, Adam? I mean, Pigeon website is pigeondocuments.com. And actually in the show notes, I have a link specifically to your immigration page. I think it's pigeondocuments.com/immigration-law. Right? Did I get that right?
You got that right. Yeah, would definitely recommend immigration firms to go check out that immigration specific site. So you're going to have to go to pigeondocuments.com/immigration-law. Just kind of explains things in a way that's more relevant to the immigration law firms. You can also sign up for a free trial directly from our website to just test it out. And if you do, we'll definitely reach out, you know, either me or someone from our team to see if you want any more information. If you want to reach out to me, you know, directly, you can always email me. It's my first name dot my last name, so that's adam.sharf@pigeondocuments.com. Adam.sharf@pigeondocuments.com. And then you can also add me on LinkedIn, and we can connect that way. Definitely like to, you know, message with folks on there. So, you know, whatever way works best. But yeah, between going to the website, signing up for a free trial, or emailing or LinkedIning me, that'll all, I'll send you a message with any of those kind of options.
Love it. Awesome. Well, Adam, thank you so much. This has been great. I'm excited. You know, it's cool to see. It's cool to see people putting energy into the immigration space. You know, I know that you came across it as a really strong use case, but you're choosing to stay. And I, not as a spokesperson, but as someone who's tried to put a lot of time and energy into, you know, hopefully creating something positive in the industry, I'm grateful. And, you know, it's exciting to see new vendors, you know, new fellow tech companies. So I appreciate that. Before we go though, what's the plan of finishing law school? You're so two and a half semesters, right? You're so close. Will that happen? On the air, will that happen, Adam, at any point?
I have one semester left. I have promised my grandmother, who I mentioned earlier, and my father-in-law that I will finish law school. So I'm not exactly sure when it's going to happen, but I'll tell this funny story really quickly. So when we got into Y Combinator, and I went to tell my grandmother, and I said, you know, it's this amazing program, and, you know, they've built companies like Airbnb, Dropbox, Box, Stripe. You know, maybe there's a chance that we'll be able to one day be a great company. And she said, Adam, I don't care if you become Mark Zuckerberg, if you become a billionaire, you'll be an idiot billionaire if you don't finish law school. So just to give you a sense of where, you know, and that's not that that's my goal at all, and definitely just want to, you know, build the best company we can. But yeah, that's where my grandmother's mind, is at, and definitely plan on finishing. I'm not sure when though, and I hope they'll let me keep on deferring. So we'll see.
Listen, education is key. Grandma knows best. Don't let her down, okay? All right, we're going to come back to this episode in a couple of years just to make sure. No, that's awesome. And, you know, whether you do or don't, I wish you guys the best of luck. I'm excited to keep watching, you know, how you guys build out and evolve Pigeon. And thank you so much for sharing your story and coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on, Roman. Extremely grateful to be a part of this and to be a part of this industry. And definitely look forward to connecting, hopefully at the AILA conference and beyond.
Definitely. Thanks, man. Amazing. Before we move forward, I do want to say thank you again to our sponsor, main sponsor of the show, Lex Reception. So again, Lex Reception does legal intake and reception and client support services for immigration law firms. They provide 24/7 legal answering specialist. So you as an immigration law firm do not have to worry about missing, you know, client call or client email, or as we spoke about on the show, taking a really long time to get back, right? I mean, sometimes it is just a matter of getting back to a client saying we're on it, and having help from Lex Reception could cut that reply time down to, you know, nothing or very, very, very small. So check out Lex Reception at lexreception.com. Use the link in the show notes for $250 off your first month. Or, of course, if you reach out to them in general, just say you heard about them from the GMI Rocket show. So thank you to Lex Reception. And for those of you who are sticking around and watching, thank you guys so much. I will see you next week. We did have a couple more comments. So Marianne mentioned, I wanted to know how the pigeon name originated. You may have missed that, but Adam was saying that, it's just a kind of carrier pigeon, flying out, getting documents, flying back, making life easy. So that was great. So thank you for being here. Nan says, great conversation. Thanks for putting this together. Thank you as well, Nan. Appreciate you as always coming by, and hope to see you at Ayla. Thanks again, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. See you next week for another episode. And in the meantime, be safe and peace out.